When collecting a branch, be sure to collect a specimen, if possible, that's actually a little bit larger than your press. So maybe about 20 inches long. That way, if you need to, you can trim off some of the excess. It's handy when collecting specimens of woody plants to have a pair of pruning shears. Very often, the branch will be too difficult to just snap off. So I'm just going to snip a specimen of this sweet gum. There it is. Here is our specimen. Again, this is far too large a specimen to fit in a plant press, but we will trim that up when we get back to a spot where we can press. Here is a standard plant press. It has a few components, a pair of wooden frames on either side, some cardboard ventilators in the center, and then at minimum a pair of straps to tighten the thing together and press it. You can also have blotting paper that you put between the cardboard ventilators. This helps your specimens dry faster and helps protect your ventilators, but they're not always necessary. The idea behind a plant press is that you're going to squeeze the plants flat or press them, and then airflow will go through these corrugations in the cardboard and wick the moisture away from your specimen, thus allowing it to dry. To prepare your press for pressing, simply remove the straps. Lay the frame off to the side. Place a ventilator on here. We always press our specimens in between sheets of newspaper. Here is a sheet of the classic USM newspaper, the student prints. One thing that's lovely about the USM newspaper is that its newspaper fits exactly on this press. If you have other newspapers such as the USA Today or Wall Street Journal or some of the other larger papers, you may have to trim the paper to fit into your press. But essentially you want to be able to fold it up, put in a specimen, and press it back down. So let's prepare a specimen to be pressed. First, you will open your newspaper, and then you will lay the specimen in there as best you can to kind of see how it's going to fit. As you can see, this sweet gum specimen is far too large to fit into the press, so we're going to have to trim it up a bit. When trimming a woody specimen to be pressed, we very much want to be able to retain the terminal buds on this specimen. So this part right here is priority. We definitely want to keep this part of the specimen. This part over here, we're going to trim off. So we can probably go to about right here and just give that a little nip and discard that piece. So you can see our specimen is still a bit too large to go into the press. This part over here is going to be hanging out on the side. So we have a couple of options at this point. If we feel like we have enough stuff, leaf and stem in here to give us a full idea of what the specimen should look like, we can simply trim this off. So we could have clipped this right here. But another thing you can do if you want to retain that piece is you can simply fold it over, crack the stem, and lay it on top of the other part of the specimen. Now, when it comes to the final pressing of the specimen, we're going to try to separate these leaves as much as possible, but it's okay if they overlap a little bit. So we again arrange the specimen how we want it. One of the key things that we always want to do, particularly when pressing woody specimens, is you want to at least flip 1 or 2 leaves over so that we can look at the bottom side of the leaf, the underside of the leaf. If you remember, several of our species that we've learned this semester, the underside of the leaf has certain characteristics, whether it's pubescence or venation or something like that, that tells us about that specimen. So we want to make sure that we can see the underside of the leaf and the top side of the leaf at the same time. So when we cracked this stem and bent it over, that actually is going to allow us to do that. Okay, once we think we've got it ready to be pressed, we fold the newspaper over gently, trying to press the leaves flat as we can. And then we take another ventilator, starting at the back, fold of the crease of the newspaper, work your way forward and just press it. Put some firm pressure down to get it flat. And you continue to do this until you fill your plant press up. So you would lay another sheet on top of here, another specimen, and continue all the way up. Before you completely press that specimen though, you need to add one last thing to your sheet of newspaper. You need to put your name, a specimen number, and the name of the specimen if you know the name of the specimen. If you don't know the name of the specimen, then give it a field name like opposite leaf, tree, something like that. That will kind of help you remember which specimen you're talking about. With respect to your field numbers or your collection numbers, people collect them in different ways. Some just do numerically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth. What I prefer to do is my first number, 020, is the last 3 numbers of the year that we collected the specimen. And then the last 3 numbers are the actual number, sequential number of the specimen that we collected. So if this was my first specimen in the year 2020, that would be its number. There are a few special exceptions to pressing. If you have a specimen such as an oak with large acorns or a pine with pine cones, then you will dry those individual pieces separately. You would not try to put these items in a plant press. We'll just ship them separately with your specimen or add them separately with your specimen. Once your press is full, it's time to put the straps on. This can be challenging. The key here is you want to avoid twisting the straps if you can. I often hang the end of my press off of a table such as this. It helps me get the straps on a little easier. So there we go. Strap number 1 is on, and then you're going to tighten the straps. Each press has different kinds of buckles, so there's different ways to tighten them. These are the standard buckles that come with plant presses. Be sure when you put your second strap on that the buckles on both straps are pointing in the same direction. That's going to make it easier to tighten the straps in just a second. So now that the plant press is assembled and tightened, it's time to get these specimens dry. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can rig up a screen over a low wattage light bulb, like a 40-watt light bulb, and you can set the press on top of that screen so that the heat rises through these ventilators and pulls moisture away. That's probably the fastest way to dry a specimen, but we don't always have the ability to create such a homemade plant dryer at our homes. So another way, probably the easier way, is to lay the press on its side and then set a fan up so that the breeze from the fan blows through the ventilators this way. And after you set that fan up, put it in an area where it won't be bothered, and let that fan blow on this dryer for maybe 3 or 4 days, and then check your specimens every so often. After 3 or 4 days, they will be dry. Do not be alarmed if the leaves change colors. That's normal as the plant dries. Some of them will turn brown, some might even turn black. Alyssium floridanum is notorious for the young foliage to turn black as it dries. Don't worry about that. That's not unusual. Here are some specimens from the aquatic botany class that was taught last fall. In fact, I believe this is Molly's collection right here. Yep, there you are, Molly. There is a specimen of cyperus. And that's what it should look like. A flat, dried piece of plant stuck in a newspaper. And that's how you will submit these. You'll collect these newspapers, stack them up, and bring them back to me, or I will come get them from you, or you can ship them if you're out of state. And that's how we will submit your final collection.